Hello, listeners. It's Gunter Swoboda here with some exciting news. We're on the lookout for sponsors to join us on our incredible journey with Inspired Change with Gunter. If your organization cares deeply about meaningful conversations around masculinity, self development, and mental health, we'd love to partner with you. Our podcast has a wonderful, dedicated audience committed to personal growth and positive social change. By sponsoring Inspired Change with Gunter, your brand will connect with listeners who truly value thoughtful discussion and support initiatives that promote real transformation. We're incredibly proud to be ranked number one in Australia and number 5 in the USA on FeedSpot's top men's mental health podcasts to listen and follow in 2024. With an average of 50,000 downloads per episode each week from listeners all around the world, our reach is significant and growing. For more information on how to become a sponsor, please reach out to Miranda Spiegner Sapon, our showrunner and executive producer at miranda@noirtainment.com. We'd love to explore how we can work together to inspire change. Now, thank you for your continued support, and let's keep inspiring change together.
You're listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. To guide us through the intricacies and intersections of emotions, relationships, and male identity is renowned psychologist, author, and speaker Gunter Swoboda. This is Inspire Change.
Before I begin the actual podcast, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I work. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. Welcome everybody to another episode of Inspired Change with Gunter. I'm your host. Welcome back to Inspired Change with Gunter, the podcast where I explore the depths of human potential, unravel the intricacies of personal development, and celebrate the fantastic transformations that can happen when we dare to challenge conventional thinking. I'm your host, Gunter, and today's a special episode. Today in Australia is Father's Day. And so what I thought I would do is to do a podcast that honours the men who've taken on the role of dad, a role that's both demanding and incredibly rewarding. And from personal experience, I can tell you that we can go from joy to frustration, rage, and the depth of helplessness in about 5 minutes. But then it's all good because in the long run, it is a joyous thing to be doing. And sometimes, at this moment, I especially think about those men who've been robbed of that opportunity for one reason or another. And my heart goes out to you. As I'm going to delve into today's topic, let's take a moment to acknowledge the unique and profound impact that fathers have on the lives of their children, including both sons and daughters. Let me explore how fathers, in their own distinct way, influence the psychological and social development of their kids, and emphasize the vital importance of bonding and the enduring positive impact of paternal involvement on their children's futures. So let's start by recognizing that the role of the father is far more complex and nuanced than the traditional stereotype of the breadwinner. While providing materially for the family has long been seen as a father's primary responsibility, modern research tells us that the emotional and psychological presence of fathers is just as, if not more, crucial. One of the significant areas where fathers impact their children is in bonding. This connection isn't just about the shared experiences or spending time together. It really is about the deep emotional and psychological attunement that fathers can create with their children, ties that shape the child's personality, their sense of security, and their ability to form relationships with others. So, I'm going to talk a bit about bonding because most of the time we tend to think about bonding as something that happens after the baby's born. Now, according to research in developmental psychology, the bond between a father and his child begins long before that child is born. A study published in the Journal of Family Psychology found that fathers who were involved during the prenatal period by supporting their partner, attending prenatal appointments, and preparing for the baby's arrival set the stage for a more involved father-child relationship after birth. Now, once the child's born, this bond becomes even more critical. For sons, the father often becomes the first model of masculinity. Boys inevitably look to their fathers to learn what it means to be a man, how to express emotion, how to treat others, and how to navigate the world around them. When fathers are affectionate, supportive, and present, they set the foundation for their sons to develop a healthy sense of masculinity. Unfortunately, when fathers are absent, either physically or emotionally, sons by and large struggle with identity issues, low self esteem, and difficulties in forming secure relationships. But hold on, it's not just sons who benefit from a strong bond with their dads. Daughters also gain significantly from having an involved and loving father. Research shows that girls who have positive relationships with their dads are more likely to develop higher self esteem, have better academic outcomes, and form healthier romantic relationships in adulthood. Now, there's one thing that I want to add into this because we tend to forget about that. Quite a bit of research has shown that when daughters have that strong bond with their dads, they delay being sexually active, often to the age of 17, 18, sometimes even longer. Now, in today's world, that gives the girl, the daughter, an opportunity to actually be a lot more discriminating about who she chooses as a mate rather than rushing it in or doing a trade off where she's expecting love whilst giving out sex as a sort of transactional part of a relationship with a boy. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Child and Family Studies showed that not only did they delay early sexual activity, but they actually curtailed risky behaviours, including substance abuse. So what this tells us that the role of the dad directly is a protective measure, and it's a protective role that fathers can play in their daughters' lives. Now, while bonding is crucial, it's important to recognise that the quality of the father-child relationship often hinges on the father's ability to communicate effectively. Now, what are we talking about here? What's effective communication? Well, we're talking about dads who listen, who are patient, who engage in meaningful conversations with their children, who empower themselves to foster environments where their children feel safe and valued. One of the things that I teach parents often is a process about creating Socratic dialogue as part of their parenting toolbox, where rather than getting in there and lecturing and telling the kid what they need to do and chastising them for not having done the chores, their homework, why they left their, bike in the middle of the driveway, all those sorts of things. We need to, first of all, before we can, in essence, influence a child, have a good relationship with them. And that's where it comes through in that Socratic process. So checking in with your son or your daughter about how was your day? What went well? What didn't? Is there something that you wish wouldn't have happened? What could you do about it? And that's the empowering bit in the communication with a child, is that, during that process, children who regularly communicate with their dads about their lives and feelings had better emotional regulation and lower levels of anxiety and depression. Now, there's been a study where they demonstrated between mothers and daughters that texting has no impact on oxytocin in a positive way, nor does it reduce cortisol. Now, I suspect that's true with fathers and daughters, and certainly fathers and sons. And this is where we are creating a better buffer against anxiety and depression. And, for most of us who've got teenagers, we know that this is absolutely critical during adolescence. This is a time when kids are navigating identity and autonomy and how much agency they have in the world. Dads who stay emotionally available during these years provide a crucial anchor from which their kids can navigate the challenges of growing up, including dealing with toxic peer groups, which is a thing that I constantly see. Now, the other part of it is that, especially for boys, and this is where my current clinical experience really kicks in, is that I work with a lot of teenage boys who have ended up in toxic relationships with girls, where the girl is fundamentally transactional in her behavior towards him, is controlling, conditionally controlling, i.e., if you do this for me, it tells me that you love me. They're often coercive in that context. And so one of the things that happens to the boys is they begin over time to recognize that they're not happy in that relationship, but they're having difficulties extracting themselves because, unfortunately, they get mixed messages. Often their mates will tell them you need to get out, but they might have other mates who go, if you do that, you're an ass. Now, unfortunately, in some of these relationships, the capacity to draw a line in the sand and exit that relationship might need to be done by texting. And this is where a lot of people become very judgmental and go, if you do that, that's just a dick thing to do. If you're in a toxic relationship, any way that you can get out of that relationship is okay in my book, because you cannot, in all conscience, allow your son or and if it was your daughter, you wouldn't even think twice about it. But with your son, he needs to get out and he needs to have the support to get out. Another critical factor to consider in all of this is how dads influence the social development of their kids. Dads often encourage risk-taking and independence in ways that complement maternal nurturing. Now, that's not to say that mothers don't encourage independence. Most of the time they do, although a lot of times they don't. But fathers often do so through activities that involve physical play, problem solving, and exploration. This kind of engagement teaches kids resilience, it teaches them confidence, and the ability to tackle challenges head on. Unfortunately, in this time and age, we've become risk adverse. And this is one of the things that I perpetually see in mother-child relationships, especially mother-son relationships, where mum's highly anxious about what the boy's doing. I often joke that when my son was a teenager, I had frequent flyers at the accident and emergency department. Now, did that make me anxious? It made me apprehensive, but it didn't make me stop my son from getting out there and testing himself. Now, sometimes it was a bit worse than others, but he survived. And reflecting on my own adolescence, I can tell you that most of the time, most of us survive out of sheer luck, not good design. Uh, the topic of having casualties in this is very extensive, and we could go into that in depth. I don't want to do that here. Um, So, again, coming back to what it is that we know from research, there was a landmark study published in Developmental Psychology that found that children who engaged in regular physical play with their dads, such as rough and tumble play, tended to have better social skills and were more popular among peers. This form of play, while sometimes undervalued, plays a crucial role in teaching kids how to read social cues, manage aggression, and develop empathy. And the other thing that I want to point out here is that it also teaches the boy that when I say no, enough is enough, they stop. They don't continue. And so again, in boy-girl relationships, a lot of boys don't read the social cues very well. So when she's becoming ambivalent about what's going on, he continues. And she needs to firstly be more assertive, and he needs to listen better and take notice. To go with when no is no, it's no. Back off, buddy. So the thing that we've got to think about here is we need to address the evolving role of fathers in our society. In the past few decades, we've seen a significant shift in how fatherhood's perceived. There are more dads that are taking on active caregiving roles, sharing parental responsibilities more equally with mothers. But we're not just here as dads to do the good stuff. We are also here to demonstrate to our kids the role of teamwork with their mothers. So when I do the domestics, I'm not helping my wife. I'm doing my share of what needs to be done in the domestic sphere. And boys, especially, need to be in that context brought up to respect that. And if dad's involved in that context, they're more likely to just take it on board. Lots of dads are fantastic cooks, but they cook, but someone else cleans up. Now, my view is that if you make a mess, you clean it up. Now, I might get some pushback on that, but I have a strong belief in if it's going to be, it's up to me. So, unfortunately, despite a lot of these positive changes, we must also acknowledge the pressures many fathers face. The social expectation to be the stoic provider can be overwhelming. This leads to stress, anxiety, and in a lot of cases, emotional withdrawal. And this is why it's crucial for us to continue challenging these outdated norms and to support fathers in embracing a more holistic view of masculinity, one that values emotional expression, vulnerability, and active caregiving. And we need a system that supports that. We need corporations to understand that working 14, 15 hours a day, constantly on call, is a significant obstacle in a father's world. We need to be much, much more responsive collectively. We need politicians to recognise that those corporate changes need to be supported by other legislation, by economic changes. Right? So again, we need to take a deep dive to the root causes of why our society is experiencing such a significant level of stress, distress, and ultimately suicide. So, as I wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with a thought. Fatherhood, like any other significant role in life is a journey of growth. I wasn't perfect when I kicked off, and I did some things that I'm not proud of. Fortunately, I managed to pull up with it early, not late. And I embraced change. I took on board what my partner said, my wife. I took on board what the kids said. Right? So again, it's not about being perfect or always having the right answers. In fact, you're probably better off relating to your, especially teenagers, from the perspective of, I don't know anything, you tell me. It's about being present, engaged, and willing to learn and adapt. Remember, flexibility leads to adaptation, leads to resilience. As I practice it as an adult father, I am, by modeling, teaching that to my kids. The impact of this on children is profound and it's enduring, shaping the adults that they'll become and the legacy that they will leave behind when, if they so choose, to become a father themselves. So, on this Father's Day, let's celebrate the fathers who are striving to make a difference. Let's honour the men who are breaking down barriers, who challenge stereotypes, and who redefine what it means to be a dad in the 21st century. And let's remember that the role of father is not just about raising children. It's about inspiring change, both in our families and in the world. You bring them up with the right values, they will transmit that into their lives, into their communities, into their work. And hopefully, we'll move towards a better community, a better society. So thank you for joining me on this special Father's Day episode of Inspired Change with Gunter. If you found today's discussion meaningful, please share it with others and let's continue the conversation. So until next time, keep challenging, keep growing, and keep inspiring change. This is me signing off. Love to hear from you. And if you're interested, please check out my work on www.gunterswoboda.com or www.goodmengreat.com.
Thank you for listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. For more information on the Making Good Men Great movement, or for individual or group coaching sessions with Gunter, visit goodmengreat.com. For inquiries regarding broadcast topics or appearing on the show, email Miranda at noirtainment.com. That's Miranda at noirtainment.com.